This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. It's Christmas Eve morning, December 24th, 2024. I'm Clayton Neville in for John Trout. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
A House Ethics Committee report finds former Congressman Matt Gaetz committed statutory rape on a 17-year-old girl, among other violations. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
Luigi Mangione in Manhattan Criminal Court entering a not guilty plea to charges of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Julie Walker, New York.
A police officer killed responding to a 911 call in North Carolina. Lisa Dwyer has details.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has sued the NCAA to block the participation of transgender athletes in women's sports. I'm Geffen Coolbaugh.
On this day before Christmas, Americans are finding themselves spending less on holiday cocktails and significantly less at the gasoline pump. I'm Peter Schacknow.
Details on President Biden sparing death row inmates. All ahead on America in the Morning. The House Ethics Committee released a long-anticipated report into allegations of illegal sexual relations with an underage girl and drug use by former Trump Attorney General nominee and Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz. John Stolnis has more from Washington.
The report said that during a 4-year stretch from 2017 to 2020, Gaetz regularly paid for women to have sex with him 20 times in total, and that in 2017, one of those women was 17 years old. It said he used or possessed illegal drugs, including cocaine and ecstasy on multiple occasions, and that he inappropriately accepted gifts, including transportation and lodging, for a trip to the Bahamas in 2018. The report also said he tried to obstruct the committee's investigation and that Gaetz acted, quote, in a manner that reflects discreditably upon the House of Representatives. Gaetz has denied all wrongdoing and filed a lawsuit seeking to block the report's release. Republican Congressman and Senator-elect Jim Banks on CNN said the report does contain serious allegations.
I served with 8 years with Matt. He's very smart. He's very talented. And I know that he will do everything that he can to clear his name. And he has a right to do that. But the contents of the report, this ethics report, are very serious.
Democratic Congressman Glenn Ivey served on the Ethics Committee and tells CNN it's not the first time the committee has released a report on a member who has resigned from office.
There have been 4 instances in recent history, one per decade actually over the past 40 years, where the committee decided to release a report even after a member had left his service in Congress.
Republicans initially blocked its release when Gaetz was Donald Trump's pick to be Attorney General, but changed course in a private vote earlier this month after Gaetz withdrew his name from consideration. For his part, Trump still supports the former Florida congressman.
A friend of mine who I haven't seen in a little while, Matt Gaetz, is here. Where's Matt? He's around here someplace. Matt Gaetz. He's got a big career set up.
Gaetz spoke about that potential future at Turning Point Action's America Fest 2024 over the weekend.
Maybe special counsel to go after the insider trading for my former colleagues in Congress. It seems I may not have had enough support in the United States Senate. Maybe I'll just run for Marco Rubio's vacant seat in the United States Senate and join some of those folks.
John Stolnis, Washington.
The man accused of fatally shooting the CEO of United Healthcare went before a judge in New York City. Correspondent Julie Walker reports as Luigi Mangione pleaded not guilty to state murder and other charges. Inside the courtroom, there were protests demanding he be released outside.
Luigi Mangione in Manhattan Criminal Court entering a not guilty plea to charges of murdering United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson.
Charge you with the crime of murder in the first degree and other related charges. How do you plead to this indictment, sir? Guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
That's all Mangione told the judge as he sat shackled in a sweater, collared shirt, and khakis.
I'm very concerned about my client's right to a fair trial in this case. He's being prejudiced by some statements that are being made by government officials. Like every other defendant, he is entitled to a presumption of innocence. But unfortunately, the way this has been handled so far, his rights are being violated.
His lawyer, Karen Agnifilo, telling the judge last week's perp walk teeming with heavily armed officers and the mayor was an unnecessary spectacle.
They staged perp walks to the media unrelated to a legitimate law enforcement objective is unconstitutional, and I submit there was zero law enforcement objective to do that sort of perp walk. There's absolutely no need for that whatsoever.
Hey, hey, ho, ho,
outside court, Mangione supporters like Natalie Menares, who says medical debt wiped her out.
I'm here in solidarity with all the patients and all the victims of insurance claims being denied, all the families, and also because I used to work for insurance companies in my 20s and 30s, and I know how cutthroat they are and how greedy they are, especially the higher-ups. As extreme as it was, it jolted the conversation about the fact that we need to deal with this issue.
The 26-year-old also charged with federal crimes that could carry the death penalty. Julie Walker, New York.
The Attorney General of Texas is suing the NCAA. We'll tell you why when America in the Morning returns after this. The holiday week bringing lots of travel across the United States. Some of it could be treacherous at times. Matt Rindy's here to sort it all out for us. Matt.
We have several travel concerns for Christmas Eve day, one of the more heavily traveled days of the year. First of these systems will be moving through the Northeast first thing this morning with a wintry mix of snow, sleet, and freezing rain. This can impact travel across many of the eastern cities with the recent cold spell keeping the ground cold as snow gets underway. The good news is this will exit by the afternoon and temperatures for many locations will climb above freezing, improving travel conditions. Farther south through most of Virginia into the southeast, it will be largely dry, though a storm off the east coast will lead to some rain in coastal North and South Carolina. Highs will be in the 40s and 50s in Virginia and warm into the 70s into Florida. Another system in Texas will blossom showers and thunderstorms through the eastern part of the state. A few of those storms could produce gusty winds, downpours, and hail. This could also slow travel for a time as these thunderstorms move through. Rain from that system will continue to extend well to the north through eastern Oklahoma, into Arkansas, southern Missouri, Illinois, and Kentucky. And then heading out west, we have another storm spreading rain and thunderstorms centered along the coast of Northern California, with rain farther northward into Washington and then southward into Southern California. This will lead to some difficult travel throughout the day. As moisture moves inland, it will lead to some rain and snow showers, which would also cause some slippery travel, especially this afternoon. In the southwest, the Rockies and high plains into the northern plains of Great Lakes, we're looking at dry weather. That's the weather across America. Portsmouth, New Hampshire will continue to see snow this morning with an inch or so, then drying this afternoon with a high of 33. Redding, California will have some showers and thunderstorms today with a high of 58. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember to follow us everywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. A Greensboro, North Carolina police officer was killed after he responded to a 911 call about a man with a gun inside of a supermarket. Correspondent Lisa Dwyer reports.
Officer Haran was hired in September of 2017 to start the 103rd PBIC Academy. He was an excellent officer. He had an outstanding reputation inside the department and in the community.
Greensboro Assistant Police Chief Milford J. Harris says that Officer Michael Horan was killed after responding to a call about an armed person at a Food Lion store in Greensboro, North Carolina.
A shooting occurred inside of the store at approximately 11 a.m., fatally wounding Officer Haran.
Harris called Officer Haran an excellent officer and that Haran had an outstanding reputation both in the department and the community.
Together we are mourning Officer Haran, who was a husband, a father, a son, a friend, and much more to his family.
Officer Haran first joined the department in 2018. A suspect is in custody.
The circumstances of what led to the shooting are currently being investigated. Thanks to the help of multiple partners, the offender is in custody and there is no threat to the public.
I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Just 24 hours after President-elect Donald Trump told a crowd in Arizona that he'll end what he called the transgender lunacy, Texas announced it's filing a lawsuit against the NCAA as transgender athletes are about to face another challenge in court. Correspondent Gethin Kulba reports.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has sued the NCAA to block the participation of transgender athletes in women's sports, arguing that it tricks and misleads fans. The lawsuit filed in state district court argues the NCAA violates the Texas Trade Practices Act. The law is designed to protect consumers from deceptive business practices. The lawsuit is the latest attempt by conservative politicians to target transgender athletes and push the NCAA into banning them from competition. NCAA President Charlie Baker recently told Congress he was aware of fewer than 10 active transgender athletes. I'm Gethin Coolbaugh.
Americans are spending less money on two particular products this holiday season. Can you guess which ones? We'll tell you when America in the Morning returns after this. Here's CNBC's Peter Schack now with Tuesday Business.
Many U.S. consumers have spent this year, and especially this holiday season, watching for bargains and watching their spending more carefully. But they've got more dollars in their pocket as gasoline prices fall, according to new figures from tracking site GasBuddy and its head of petroleum analysis, Patrick DeHaan.
32 states where average gas prices are below the $3 a gallon mark today. While prices are not psychologically low, right? They're not at their COVID lows. Keep in mind, though, that if you adjust for affordability, Americans are spending the least amount of their income on gasoline since about 2015.
Speaking of autos, consumers will likely have a brand new company to buy cars from sometime in 2026. Automakers Honda and Nissan have announced they are putting together a deal to merge and create the world's third largest automaker. They expect the details to be worked out within 6 months and the merger to be completed in about 18 months or so. A rush of last-minute shopping will take place today, and that could be a boon to the streaming services of the world. Wall Street Journal tech columnist Joanna Stern notes that buying a year's worth of Netflix or Spotify for a friend or relative is both easy and appreciated. Although she says if you're going that route, here's a better idea, a password manager.
I can understand that some people would say that sounds like the worst gift ever. I don't think maybe you wouldn't be thrilled to open a password manager. But when you think about the fact that 80% of confirmed breaches are because of weak passwords, it's a pretty nice gift.
Wine and spirits could also make up a great deal of last-minute gifting today. But even if the champagne flows, the money may not. According to the Wine and Spirits Wholesalers of America, an industry trade group, wholesale spirit sales are expected to fall about 5.7% from 2023, and with more severe year-ago comparisons to last year's holiday season. Some well-known U.S. companies have been out shopping as well. Xerox, the venerable maker of office equipment, is buying printer maker Lexmark. Lexmark is the company that was spun out of IBM way back in 1991 and was eventually sold to private China-based investors. And members of the Nordstrom family, along with a Mexican retail partner, are buying the retail chain that bears their name for $6.25 billion. Wall Street is hoping for another Santa Claus rally, something that history says traditionally happens in the final 5 trading days of the year and the first 2 of the new year.
I want to keep it into perspective. We were up 26% last year, 24% this year. I actually think we could rally into the end of the year. And I think the winners are going to continue to win into the end of the year because you have portfolio managers that are underperforming their benchmarks, and they're going to just try to catch up.
That's Hightower Chief Investment Strategist Stephanie Link. The most notable item on today's watch list is an early exit for Wall Street. The stock market will close 3 hours early at 1 p.m. Eastern Time and then be closed for the Christmas holiday on Wednesday.
More commutations for President Biden while a former president is hospitalized. We've got details on both stories. When America in the Morning returns, stay with us. In his last month in office, President Joe Biden's commuting the sentences of most every prisoner on federal death row. Correspondent Donna Warder has the details.
President Joe Biden says he's converting from death row to life in prison the sentences of 37 of the 40 people on death row in federal prison. The only 3 prisoners still sentenced to death Boston Marathon bomber Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, Dylan Roof, who massacred 9 black church members in Charleston, South Carolina, and Robert Bowers, who shot to death 11 members of a synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. In 2021, the Biden administration announced a moratorium on federal capital punishment to study the protocols used. President-elect Donald Trump has spoken often about expanding the death penalty to include those caught selling drugs, and he's even praised China for its harsher treatment of drug dealers. Donna Warder, Washington.
Bill Clinton's been hospitalized after developing a fever. The 78-year-old former president was in Washington, D.C. at the time and was taken to Georgetown University Medical Center as a precaution for treatment and observation. Now, Clinton has had several issues over the past 2 decades, mostly related to heart problems. The 42nd president had a quadruple bypass surgery in September of 2004 and 2 coronary stents placed in his heart back in February of 2010. He also underwent surgery for a collapsed lung in 2005. A spokesperson for Clinton said the situation is not urgent and wanted to be checked out. He stayed overnight in the hospital and is expected to be released, barring any issues, sometime today. America in the Morning for December 24th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm Clayton Neville in for John Trout, and this is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm Clayton Neville in for John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
It's beginning to look like another record for holiday travel. I'm Julie Walker.
World leaders responding to President Trump's remarks about the Panama Canal.
The illegal arrested for allegedly setting a woman on fire on a New York City subway had been deported before. I'm Pamela Furr.
Rough surf hammers Central California. An arrest in a Michigan chemical leak. The FAA now involved in a Florida drone incident. We'll have those stories.
Global concerns about nuclear threats have prompted a spike in private bunker sales around the world. I'm Norman Hall.
What are some of the most anticipated entertainment events next year? I'm Kevin Carr.
We'll be right back. A lot of Americans hitting the road today. Weather, of course, will vary depending on where you are. Meteorologist Matt Rindy's got our forecast on this Christmas Eve morning. Matt?
We have several travel concerns for Christmas Eve day. Starting out in the west, we have another storm that will be spreading rain and thunderstorms, which is going to be centered along the northern portions of California, with rain extending as far north as Washington and even farther south into Southern California. This is going to lead to some difficult travel throughout the day. And as moisture spreads inland, it will lead to some rain and snow showers, which will also cause some slippery travel, especially this afternoon. Another system in Texas will produce several showers and thunderstorms through the eastern part of the state. A few of those storms could produce gusty winds, downpours, and hail, and this certainly could slow travel for a time as those thunderstorms move through. Rain from that system will also extend well to the north through eastern Oklahoma, Arkansas, southern Missouri, into Illinois and Kentucky. And in the northeast, first thing this morning, we have a wintry mix of snow, sleet, and freezing rain. That could impact the area. For many eastern cities, with the recent cold spell keeping ground cold as snow gets underway, the good news is this will exit by the afternoon, and temperatures for many locations will climb above freezing, which will improve travel conditions. Farther south through Virginia into the southeast, it's going to be largely dry, though a storm off the east coast could lead to some rain in coastal North and South Carolina. Highs will be in the 40s and 50s in Virginia and warm into the 70s into Florida. The southwest into the Rockies, western high plains, and into the northern plains and Great Lakes will enjoy decent weather overall with some amount of sunshine for many areas, and temperatures will generally run about 10 to 20 degrees above their historical average. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Matt Rindy.
Remember to follow us everywhere you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Today will be a busy travel day as part of a tough travel week, with millions of Americans also facing weather issues, including rain and snow in the Pacific Northwest and the Northeast, some rain in the Midwest, and icy weather around the Great Lakes. Correspondent Julie Walker reports holiday travel did get off to a good start for some leaving early.
It's beginning to look like another record for holiday travel, with drivers and flyers getting out of town ahead of Christmas, Hanukkah, and Kwanzaa.
It was the timings that worked out, so this close to the holidays is fine for us. It doesn't seem as busy as I expected, I think.
At Chicago's O'Hare Airport Sunday, flyer Sean Taylor was pleasantly surprised.
You know, travel at this busy time of year, so I can get home to see family for the holidays. The airport has been fine so far today. Doesn't seem too hectic.
Ditto for Haley Hahn, who had to pack up the family and the presents.
Now that we're at the airport, I feel like I can relax. It was a little bit of a hassle to get packed and ready, but there's also a magic about the holidays that makes it exciting to travel.
AAA predicts more than 119 million people will travel at least 50 miles from home between this past weekend and New Year's Day, which would top the previous holiday season high set in 2019. I'm Julie Walker.
AAA predicts 119 million people will travel more than 50 miles from home for the holidays. That's up by some 3 million from last Christmas. Close to 8 million people will travel by air, and that would be a record. One reason for the travel surge, the price at the gas pump, as AAA says we've hit a low on prices with a gallon of unleaded averaging $3.04 nationwide, with 31 states now with gas prices averaging below $3 a gallon. Hawaii has the highest gas prices in the country, with Oklahoma the lowest. There's global reaction to recent comments surrounding President-elect Donald Trump about potentially taking back control of the Panama Canal. During a weekend speech at Turning Point USA, the president-elect made his stance clear.
We're being ripped off at the Panama Canal like we're being ripped off everywhere else.
The comments came after a social media post by Trump that said the fees being charged by Panama are ridiculous, especially knowing the extraordinary generosity that's been bestowed to Panama by the U.S.
You got to treat us fairly, and they haven't treated us fairly.
The United States surrendered control of the canal back in 1999 based on a treaty agreed to during the Carter administration at that time. The fee to pass through the Panama Canal was raised by Panama because of a drought in that country. Trump with the stern warning.
If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture of giving are not followed, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to the United States of America in full, quickly, and without question. I'm not going to stand for it.
And details on how Trump would make that happen aren't clear, but the president of Panama responded by saying that every square meter of the Panama Canal and its adjacent area belong to Panama and will continue to be. Trump responded with an image of the American flag planted in the canal with the caption, "We'll see about that." Meanwhile, the president-elect suggesting he could potentially buy Greenland, but the prime minister there says his country is not for sale. And critics are blasting New York City after surveillance videos showed some people running away while others were standing around and watching after a woman was set on fire on a subway train. Pamela Furr reports fast action by police caught the primary suspect in the horrific killing, an illegal migrant from Guatemala who had been previously deported.
Something is clearly wrong with a person that would set an innocent individual on fire, a woman, and sit there and watch her burn. This person was snuck into the country after being removed from the country, what my preliminary reports are giving me. I've been talking about this over and over again.
We've learned Sebastian Zepeda, who has now been charged with first and second degree murder and first degree arson, is an illegal migrant who had been deported once before. He was arrested by Border Patrol on June 1st, 2018, after he crossed into Arizona. Then he was deported by the Trump administration just days later. This, according to ICE spokesperson Marie Ferguson, who says Zepeda then re-entered the country at an unknown place and unknown time. Surveillance video showed a man calmly approaching a woman who was sleeping aboard a stationary F train on Sunday and setting her on fire. She was pronounced dead at the scene.
Unbeknownst to the officers who responded, the suspect had stayed on the scene and was seated on a bench on the platform just outside the train car. And the body-worn cameras on the responding officers produced a very clear, detailed look at the killer.
NYPD Transit Chief Joseph Galata tells reporters the suspect was arrested on a train in Manhattan a few hours later after 911 calls from a group of young subway riders.
Our transit sergeant responded to that location, met with these young high school students, looked inside the train and saw an individual that he recognized from wanted flyers that we got out earlier.
I'm Pamela Furr.
Authorities in Florida looking into how drones at a local drone show injured a young boy. We'll have the latest when America in the Morning returns after this. A major storm is pounding California's central coast, creating damaging surf conditions, and at least one person has died. Correspondent Ben Thomas reports.
A Pacific storm expected to bring hurricane-force winds and waves up to 60 feet is already blamed for at least one death along California's central coast. The Santa Cruz County Sheriff's Office says the wave trapped a man beneath debris at Sunset State Beach. The high surf's also believed to have pulled another man into the Pacific just a little farther south. To the north, Santa Cruz Parks and Recreation Director Tony Elliott says,
the Santa Cruz Wharf was hit as part of this swell event with large waves. We lost, we believe, approximately about 150 feet of the end of the wharf.
The wharf was under renovation after damage from previous storms, and 2 people had to be rescued from the water, while a third swam to safety. None seriously injured. Forecasts suggest conditions are likely to worsen, and Santa Cruz Mayor Fred Keeley says the pilings and piers now in the water
weigh hundreds and hundreds of pounds apiece and are being driven by the Pacific Ocean. That is not something that we think folks ought to mess around with. We encourage people to stay out of the water until further notice.
I'm Ben Thomas.
The head of a chemical company is facing charges in Michigan related to the 2022 oil and chemical discharge into the Flint River. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel said 60-year-old Rajinder Singh Minhas of Rochester, Michigan, will appear in court next month.
Those who run a business have a responsibility to ensure their operations do not jeopardize public health or the environment, especially our precious water resources. Nowhere should that responsibility to respect the public waterways be more obvious than here in the city of Flint.
Minhas has been arraigned on falsely altering a public record, substantial endangerment to the public, discharge of injurious substance to the waters of the state, false statements and omissions regarding air pollution control, among other charges.
Blatant neglect and disregard of this responsibility cannot and will not be tolerated, and we will continue to make sure that those who fail in this important duty are met with the full force of law.
I'm Haya Panjwani.
As authorities in Florida are trying to figure out why some drones fell from the sky in Orlando during a Christmas light show, the FAA is now getting involved after a young boy was hit by a falling drone and required life-saving surgery. Correspondent Mike Hempen reports.
The Federal Aviation Administration says it's investigating why several drones collided and then fell from the sky Saturday night during a holiday show in Orlando. One woman says her 7-year-old son needed surgery after a drone hit him in the chest and the blade cut his mouth. The drones fell into a crowd of thousands of people watching the show at Orlando's Lake Eola Park. The show was permitted through the FAA. Drone shows typically require a waiver to operate more than one drone at a time. The FAA reviews each drone show application to make sure the flying public and the people on the ground are safe. I'm Mike Hempen.
A major department store chain is being sold, and one of those buying Nordstrom is a Mexican retail group. Correspondent Rita Foley reports.
Nordstrom has agreed to be acquired and taken private by Nordstrom family members and a Mexican retail group. This is a deal worth more than $6 billion. Rivals like Macy's and Kohl's have been pressured by major investors to make huge changes in order to return more profit to shareholders. The traditional department stores are facing competition from giants like Walmart and Target, as well as a host of fast fashion brands and Amazon.com. Sales at Nordstrom have essentially flatlined over the past decade or so, but the company opened 23 new stores this year and now operates almost 400 Nordstrom and Nordstrom Rack stores in the U.S. I'm Rita Foley.
Quantum communications promises near instant transfer of massive amounts of data, but until now it was not able to traverse the existing internet. Here's Chuck Palm with today's tech news.
Engineers at Northwestern University have achieved quantum teleportation alongside normal internet traffic on a simple fiber optic network. This means we could enter a new era in communication technology where quantum and traditional networks coexist, offering unprecedented levels of security and speed. Quantum teleportation is a process that harnesses the power of the quantum entanglement, enabling ultra-fast and secure network traffic over great distances. Professor Prem Kumar led the study, said our work shows a path towards next-generation quantum and classical networks sharing a unified fiber optic infrastructure, and it opens the door to pushing quantum communications to the next level. Encoding digital information on two photons that are quantumly entangled means they do not have to be close together, yet the information encoded on the first photon would end up at the second distant location almost instantly. What's revolutionary is that the information sent to the distant photon would be able to traverse the existing fiber optic network the internet uses. I'm Chuck Palm.
Robert Workman has sports.
NFL Week 16 wrapped up Monday night as the Packers romped over the Saints 34-0, clinching a playoff berth for the fifth time in 6 years. Of the 4 NFC playoff slots claimed so far, 3 are teams from the North Division: the Lions, the Vikings, and now the Pack. Week 17 begins with a Christmas Day doubleheader tomorrow. The Chiefs at the Steelers, then the Ravens at the Texans. That's 4 of the 5 AFC teams that are assured of postseason play. College football, 2 bowl games on Monday. The Myrtle Beach Bowl, UTSA crushed Coastal Carolina 44-15. The Roadrunners scored the game's first 27 points and kept the Chanticleers off the scoreboard until the fourth quarter. And at the famous Idaho Potato Bowl, Northern Illinois outlasted Fresno State 28-20 in double overtime. Christmas Eve means it's the Hawaii Bowl tonight in Honolulu, South Florida, and San Jose State. Georgia quarterback Carson Beck had successful surgery on his right elbow Monday, but that means his season is over. Sophomore Gunnar Stockton, who led the Bulldogs' comeback win over Texas in the SEC title game, will start the Sugar Bowl on New Year's night versus Notre Dame. NBA, the front-running Cavaliers rolled over the Jazz 124-113, while the Magic upset the Celtics 108-104. Knicks ripped the Raptors 139-125, 31 apiece for Karl Anthony Towns and OG Anunoby. The Thunder rolled over the Wizards. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 41 points, 32 for Nikola Jokic, and the Nuggets win over the Suns. The Sixers stopped the Spurs. Tyrese Maxey with 32 points, stepping up after Joel Embiid was ejected.
We kind of knew how we had to play, had to pick up the pace. We wanted to get the ball down the court before Wemby got down there, before he got in the paint, honestly. And shoot some quicker threes and push the pace, get some layups, and get out in transition and get stops.
That's Tuesday Sports.
Some Americans are out there this morning searching for that last-minute gift. Well, I've got one that's probably not on your list to tell you about. Hang around. We'll do it when America in the Morning returns after this. This one most likely was not on your holiday gift list, or maybe it was. Correspondent Norman Hall reports there's been an uptick in the sales of nuclear bomb shelters.
Global concerns about nuclear threats have prompted a spike in private bunker sales around the world. The bunkers range in size from small metal boxes with crawl spaces to extravagant underground mansions. In the northeast Texas town of Sulphur Springs, Ron Hubbard operates Atlas Survival Shelters.
Most people surveyed believe that there will be a World War III one day and it will be very catastrophic, and that these shelters will have great value at that time.
Hubbard says COVID lockdowns, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and the outbreak of the Israel-Hamas war have driven sales. Critics of bunkers say they create the outdated perception that nuclear war is survivable. Massachusetts Congressman Jim McGovern.
Underground bunkers, if we ever get to a point where there's all-out nuclear war, aren't going to protect people. And
Instead, we ought to be investing our resources and our energy trying to talk about a freeze initially, and then finding ways to engage countries that possess nuclear weapons.
The government says rather than building bunkers, there should be an effort to freeze nuclear weapons production and to engage with countries that have them. I'm Norman Hall.
As we begin to close the door on Hollywood and music in 2024, Kevin Carr takes a look ahead for what we need to know about some of the top entertainment events next year.
As we stare down New Year's next week, it's time to look at some anticipated entertainment for 2025.
What you all did was one of the most painful moments in the history of this company.
Apple TV Plus brings back Severance on January 17th. On HBO, The White Lotus Season 3 hits in February, while the It spinoff Welcome to Derry offers some thrills later in the year. Warner Brothers will offer a second season of Peacemaker on Max.
You've come up in the world. I could say the same about you.
While Disney Plus doubles down on its cash cows with Daredevil Born Again in March and Andor Season 2 in April. And let's not forget the Netflix slate of popular shows returning, including Wednesday Season 2 and Stranger Things Season 5.
You're not Steve Rogers.
In theaters, Disney will also lean into Marvel when Captain America Brave New World opens on Valentine's Day, while DC finally presents some competition when Superman debuts in July.
I need you to trust me one last time.
Tom Cruise returns for the final Impossible mission in May with Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning.
You're the one the wizard has been waiting for.
And of course, all the fans are waiting for Wicked Part 2 to drop next Thanksgiving. Big concert tours will also be making their way across the country. Billie Eilish's tour starts on February 8th. Dua Lipa's tour starts on March 17th. And older fans can check out Metallica hitting the road on April 12th. I'm Kevin Carr.
America in the Morning for Tuesday, December 24th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm Clayton Neville in for John Trout, and this is Westwood One.